Shalom. Call hello Yahweh Bashem Abishai, Bashem Rakak Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers that do this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so. Now even more so than ever. To the confusion of faith, join unto our ranks. The hopefully elect, the Akwaf that are listening and learning. To you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of GMS here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And as we get closer and closer to the end, things are revealing themselves. This is a very informative video. It's not a long video. It's only like 11.5 minutes long. So I'm going to read a couple scriptures, let the video play, and then finish with scripture. All right, but I do have a little bit of commentary to say before it plays. And that is that the information revealed in this video is over a year old. And when he first said that he was the first to reveal this, I kind of scoffed him. And then I looked at, the time frame when it came out, because the information that I had found out about these events came way after him. So he may well have been the very first one to put this up. And this is something you will not see in the mainstream media, as he's going to mention that. They won't share these sort of things with you. And you can go all the way back to 9/11. The events that took place in 9/11 is what set this whole thing up, because what you're about to see on this video was the target all along. All those other countries and nations just had to be taken down in succession to get to this point, which is all prophecy being fulfilled. All right? And the imposter Khazarian Jewish people that are claiming to be Israel, all right, they have nothing to do with the Bible, have nothing to do with the biblical Israelites. They're at the center of it. And now it also makes it very clear why America supports Israel and gives them so much welfare, because they're the biggest welfare state recipients in America are the Israelis over in the land of Israel. The majority of America's taxpaying dollars goes to the land of Israel. I believe, yes, it's clearly it's well over $10,000 a minute, and yet they won't share that in the mainstream media, and they keep the people in America divided racially and everything else, because they will make you to believe that so-called Negroes and Latinos and that sort are the people that are on welfare. All right, when the truth of the matter is, even here in America, the biggest welfare recipients are so-called white people. And then their brethren, their counterpart over in the land of Israel, receive billions. And that's to keep these wars fighting so that they can control this oil, as you're going to see. But this is Ezekiel 36:5. And it reads, "Therefore thus saith Yahweh power, surely in the fire of thy jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, against all Idumea," which is the Greek way of saying Edom. The Edomites, all right? As you can see the redness in his face and his nose and his cheeks. This guy is an Edomite, man. All right? There may be a glare on my screen, but, when I'm looking at because I'm recording through my phone, but actually on the screen, you can clearly see it. His face is not white. His hat is white. Okay? And it says, "Which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their hearts and despiteful minds, casting it out for a prey." When you go to the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, it also tells you how they parted the land. How let's just get it. But before I go, let me read Ezekiel 35:10. "Because thou hast said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we may possess it. Whereas Yahweh was there." And that's the land of Israel. Because now the Israelis went over there illegally to take the land from the Palestinians, and it was never their home either. All right? So when it says that they have parted my land in the book of Joel, they have. This is Joel, the 3rd chapter. Let me find the actual scripture. Yeah, it's verse 2. Wow, I'm thinking it's actually at verse 2. This is Joel 3:2, and it reads, "And I will gather all the nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat," which is where all this fighting is going on. Syria, Israel, that's the valley of Jehoshaphat. It said, "And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel." All right, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted the land. So Israel is still scattered. Israel is scattered among the nations, and the land of Israel has been parted. By whom? Ezekiel tells you the Edomites. Ezekiel prophesied the Edomites would part that land, that they would basically assign that land to themselves. Many Jewish encyclopedias tell you that modern day Jewry is Rome. All right, so the so-called white man, the former Romans, are the Edomites. Okay, so the Edomites have assigned the land of Israel to themselves, and they're waging war to control the world from there. So without any further ado, let's let Dan Hicks continue this war of Edomite on Edomite crime, attacks, violence, and media wars.
The significance of which is huge. I feel we are leading towards a major conflict in the Middle East between Syria and Russia and the Israeli, Saudi Arabian, U.S. allied forces. And I have discovered something that no one is talking about. But as soon as I post this video and it gets shared, everyone is going to be discussing the significance of this. So today I'm asking that you will please share this video as soon as you are done watching it. Here's what I found today. Alright guys, we have some major developments to cover in regards to this ongoing and escalating war in Syria. And in this video, we're going to expose the #1 company that we all need to keep an eye on here moving forward. And also just who the major players are when it comes to these global elitists and their plans to take this proxy war in Syria to the next level. And it's not just about oil, guys. This is about total control of the Middle East. And of course, you're not going to get any of this information anywhere from the mainstream media because they don't want you to know about this. So if you appreciate coverage like this, be sure to support us on Patreon so we can continue uncovering this kind of information that the mainstream media is either constantly just censoring, or they're either just completely unaware of it because they're bought and paid for and controlled, unlike us who are beholden to you, the viewers. Now, before we can get into the significance of what I found here, we need to provide some background information for context. And we're going to start back in 2009 when Qatar proposed a pipeline plan to Assad in order to send its natural gas into Europe through Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Jordan. Now, Assad refused this offer in order to, quote, protect the interest of its Russian ally, which is Europe's top supplier of natural gas. So Assad essentially just said thanks, but no thanks. And then 1 year later, Assad began negotiations for another pipeline plan, only this one is going to carry Iranian gas to Europe across Iraq and Syria. And of course, if this were to be built, Europe's dependence on Russia is going to continue, and that is in Assad's best interest. Now here, many journalists have correctly pointed out that the US-backed Qatar-Turkey pipeline into Europe is in direct competition with, and in fact in direct conflict with the Russian-backed Iranian-Syrian pipeline into Europe. And this has led many to speculate that this current proxy war in Syria right now has everything to do with maintaining the flow of gas and energy into Europe through these particular pipelines. But what I have discovered here paints a bit of a different picture because according to my research, the X that marks the spot, so to speak, is not here, but it is in fact down here in a region known as Golan Heights. This is on Syria's land, but 2/3 of it is occupied by Israeli forces, and here's where it gets interesting. In 2013, a company called Genie Oil and Gas was granted exclusive oil and gas exploration rights to this 153 square mile radius here in the southern part of the Golan Heights, and this was granted to them by none other than the Netanyahu government. And as it turns out, in 2015, it was discovered that this Israeli-occupied Golan Heights in Syria has more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia does. Guys, this is huge because you can now officially add Israel into the mix when it comes to potentially sparking World War III, all because of oil in Syria. Now, it has yet to be put into production, but odds are that that soon will be the case because just look at who I discovered is on the Strategic Advisory Board of Genie Oil and Gas. You've got names like Dick Cheney, Rupert Murdoch, Jacob Rothschild, and James Woolsey, just to name a few. This isn't your average oil company here, folks. These guys want to spark World War III, so let's get to the bottom here of just who they are and why they have such heavy hitters here, politically speaking, on their advisory board. So let's start with the founder of Genie Energy, the chief executive officer and the chairman of the board, Howard Jonas. As you can see here from his bio, he's obviously no stranger to the oil and gas industry, having been involved as far back as 2006. And it's estimated that Jonas is sitting on top of reserves in excess of 10 billion barrels of oil in the United States and 40 billion barrels in Israel. So when you add that up, it's quite significant when compared to the likes of Saudi Arabia. Now let's go through who Howard Jonas strategically picked here to be on his advisory board. First, we have Michael Steinhardt. According to Forbes magazine, he is the pioneer of modern hedge funds. And his net worth right now, as of March 2017, is in excess of $1 billion. He's also the founder of Birthright Israel, which, as we see here, is an educational organization that sponsors free 10-day heritage trips to Israel for young adults and of Jewish heritage. And that's quite the interesting symbol he's got going on over there, but perhaps that's for another video altogether. Next up, we have Richard, a.k.a. Dick Cheney, CEO of Halliburton Company and U.S. Secretary of Defense from 1989 to 1993. Now, Halliburton, of course, is one of the world's largest oil field servicing companies. They have operations already in 80 countries around the world. And the controversies surrounding Halliburton, as you can see here, are as grand in scope as their global reach has become. But that didn't stop Jonas from putting Cheney on his advisory board over here at Genie Oil and Gas. Next up, we've got Mary Landrieu. She served as the chair of the Senate Committee for Energy and Natural Resources. And according to her bio here at Genie Oil and Gas, it was her who sponsored and passed the U.S.-Israel Energy Cooperation Bill. So it's no brainer here why she's on the board, folks. It's all about political sway and influence in order to guarantee at least a backdoor into Syria. Next up, we have Rupert Murdoch, founder and executive chairman of News Corporation, one of the world's largest diversified media companies. News Corporation's holdings include Fox Entertainment, Dow Jones and Company, The New York Post, HarperCollins, and significant media assets on 6 continents. I wonder why they would want to have him involved. Could it be that it has anything to do with utilizing the media to, once again, sway the opinions of the masses to be in favor of a Syrian invasion? Blaming Assad for chemical attacks on his own people was just the beginning of the propaganda here, folks, and I think it's about to get a lot worse. Next up, we have Bill Richardson. He's the former U.S. Secretary of Energy under the Clinton administration. He's another major player here in the energy sector, not to mention a former Bohemian Grove attendee who was sweating bullets when he was questioned about it here by Luke Rudowski and our good friends over at We Are Change. I'll include links to this and to everything else contained in this video in the description below. Now moving on, we have none other than Jacob Rothschild. Yes, this is the Jacob Rothschild of the Rothschild banking dynasty, but his interests are not just in fiat currency. Turns out he's a bit of an oil tycoon himself, and in 2003, Rothschild came under scrutiny when Russian oil industrialist Mikhail Khodorkovsky's shares in Yukos passed to him under a deal that they concluded prior to Chordanovsky's arrest. So, shady dealings to say the least, already when it comes to Rothschild and big oil. A perfectly suitable candidate for Howard Jonas's advisory board here at Genie Gas and Oil. Next on the list is Dr. Lawrence Summers. He served as the 71st Secretary of the Treasury under President Clinton, and he just so happens to be a member of the Bilderberg Group, this very secretive and very nefarious organization who we've covered extensively here at Press for Truth. Again, I'll leave links in the description if you want to learn more about that. And last but certainly not least, we have James Woolsey. He is the former director of the CIA, and he's the co-founder of the United States Energy Security Council. Folks, this man is currently going around, he's all over the news right now, screaming that we need to, quote, strike Iran's nuclear operations as part of any military effort against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. So, again, a perfect contender here for Genie Oil and Gas, a company who is fully prepared to do whatever it's going to take to secure these reserves and to work with the United States and Israel, not Russia and Syria, when it comes to exporting these goods to Europe and beyond. So folks, please help me expose this plan by Genie Gas and Oil and all of their globalist, elitist insider buddies here to destabilize Syria in an effort to secure some massive oil reserves that were just found in 2015.
I don't know how much truth it is today. It was just found in 2013. Because you got to remember, General Reshley was given a plan about the 7 nations that the Edomites here in America had planned to take down. So I'm sure that they were aware of that oil going all the way back to 9/11. All right. And this is what it was all about, because supposedly there's more oils in that reserve than there is in Saudi Arabia. All right. So that means that they have competition, oil competition, and they do not want that. They need control over that oil. They want control over that oil. And the truth be saying is that oil technology is not even used. You know that the guy who invented the technology on how to run cars and engines and etc. off of water, and the military came to look into it. I forget his name. I think his name was William something. And the dude ended up dead, and you never heard about it ever again. Right? Because that would take away their grip on the world with power. That also will be clean energy with and so Esau is all about destruction and death, because like the scripture said, he's going to destroy those that destroy the world. But this is Sirach 10:8, and it reads, or Ecclesiasticus, and it reads, because of unrighteous dealings and injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And that's basically been Esau's MO ever since he's come into power. All right, the use of his sword and translating the kingdom to himself by way of force, by way of the sword. And just like Christopher Columbus said, Esau has not put his sword down still. His sword is still being used. But that's going to usher in the guard that Russia is going to play, being Gog and Magog is going to become a guard unto Iran, because this thing is ramping up, and Iran is a serious threat as a result of it. They're backing the Syrian regime, and Iran also has oil reserves. So Iran, along with Syria, pumping oil into Europe is something that Edom does not want, and that's definitely going to bring on the. Matter of fact, let's read some of that. This is Ezekiel 38:1, and it reads, and the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog and the land of Magog, and the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, and chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy army and horsemen, and all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords. And all these nations are now joining on with great armies are joining on to Russia. All right, China being the number one, and now Turkey was talked about a lot in this video, and now Turkey is against NATO. Turkey is also against Israel and against America and has joined on to Russia. And now Kim Jong-un of North Korea, from what I've heard, is now joining on to Russia. So the nations of the world, those armies handling shields with great bucklers, it's all about to happen. All right? And as a result of that, Esau Edom is going to destroy himself. America and Israel is going to get smashed. And in the midst of that, the Lord is going to come back, and all these nations are going to try to fight the Lord, and the Lord is going to destroy them all and set up his reign here on earth. And these are those days, and we're not dangerously close. We're in them. They're happening. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Abishai Bashim Rakak Wadash Wa Abba Babal.